Hello, I'm Jay Stone, and this video, this very short workshop, is for anybody who is looking to run it might be a small community project, it might be coming up to an event that you're putting on, it might be a small affair, a book club, or it could be a bigger event of 30 or 50 people. This is covering basic project management tools and some of the principles behind project management to help you get a project off the ground, get an event off the ground, and plan enough in advance that you can bring people along with you, or that you can use as a way of supporting you to get funding. This is something that funders often look for in those running projects, around having a clear plan of what you're going to do. Now, I'm Jay Stone, as I said, and I'm a corporate and executive coach, but I have a strong background in project management and change management within businesses and organizations. I have a business background spanning a decade, working across project management, business change, and event operations, delivering projects from a 50,000 person event in Amsterdam to smaller sort of events and networking events, drinks and so on in the US and Dubai. So I have a lot of experience running small scale, large scale projects and events. And regardless of the size of project that I run, whether it's doing a workshop for 5 people down the road locally to running a 50,000 person event, I implement project management in the same way. Now, the tools that you use, the extent to which you plan, will all depend on the scale and the scope of the project, but there will be some element of project management throughout. So this is for you if you're running a community project or an event and you need a bit of support sort of with that planning. Now, project management tends to be, if you've ever searched it online, it's full to the brim of jargon and confusing language, but it's really a lot of common sense. And you'll probably find this as I run through these really, really basic and simple tools that are extremely valuable in making sure that you're getting your project off the ground, or that it's running smoothly. Now, you may not have known the terms or necessarily that there was a methodology for these things, but often what I find with people is they'll say, oh, I was doing that already, it's just a slightly different version. And the benefit of using project management is it gives us a structured approach to organizing something, especially useful if we've got other people involved, whether it's a funder that we want to get on board, a partner, volunteers, other people involved, or even if it's just to sort our own mind and structure our own thoughts and ideas. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen here, so give me just a moment and we will get started. Why project management? Well, I think it's summed up perfectly in this quote. The journey with 1,000 miles begins with one step. If we think of something that is too big, we can quickly become overwhelmed and never just start. So hopefully, as part of this process, you already have an idea, or you've identified a mission or a vision that you have, whether it's a community project or an event you're running, or something larger, that you're part of an organization. And what we're going to cover in this workshop are the basic project management tools that will help you get from a point of idea, vision, or mission and operationalize that into an action plan, essentially. So this is about supporting you to map out your idea and use some of these tools to really break it down. In its simplest form, project management is about getting from one state, A, to the next, B. So approaching this change of state, which is A to B, is in a structured way, is the foundation of project management. So you can think of project management essentially like a journey. The aim is to make sure we have a clear understanding of where we're headed from the outset, what we have in order to begin, what we'll need along the way, how we'll work out if we're on the right road, and when we'll know we've reached our destination. So before we dive into project management tools, and I'll be leaving you with a workbook of tools, let's make sure we're all on the same page as to what I mean by a project. So here's an official definition of a project. This is from the Cambridge Dictionary. You will get a slightly different definition depending on where you look, but essentially, in simple terms, a project is a piece of planned work. So it's not an entire business or a complete, an entire idea or a charity. It's a piece of planned work. So it's a piece of those elements. So, for example, if I were using Stone Changes as an example, which is my coaching and training service, my business is a coaching and training service. But what I would treat as a project is perhaps the career coaching workshop that I delivered for local mothers in Southeast London recently. That was a piece of planned work that had a finish point and needed to achieve a particular purpose. So I wanted to test this, an idea in order to get funding. I wanted to pilot something, and the workshop is my project. The business is not the project. My business is not the project. This one workshop is a project. And another project might be some work that I do with Zurich Insurance on delivering workshops for their International Women's Day. And another project might be developing my brand. This year I'm looking at my branding. That's a project in itself. So they're pieces of planned work. For this workshop, we are focusing on project management. However, I want to quickly explain project, program, and portfolio management so that you have an understanding of the differences. But as I said, we will not go into those with any great detail. You can have a program of projects, and this is what we call program management. So essentially, you would have projects, a series of projects that all relate to one another in some way. So I might be delivering a workshop for working mothers for a company, and they want me to do 6 different workshops and provide one-on-one coaching and train their staff. So I would essentially call that a program, and each of those different elements a different project, and that would all come under a program. You also get portfolio management. And this is more at sort of strategy level of an organization. Usually, again, you could have a portfolio of different programs. So think, for example, of you could think of a construction company who have a portfolio of eco housing that they're developing in different council, in different boroughs, say. So they're developing these eco buildings, and they're developing different buildings in different boroughs. And so the portfolio would be this portfolio of construction that they're doing around eco living, and the different programs might be the different boroughs that they're serving or the different types of construction that they're doing. And then they would have a series of different projects that run under there. So you can see how in the project management world, especially for sort of big projects like construction, that type of management would be required. So I just wanted to get a sense of what those differences are in case they come up. But for the sake of this workshop, we are purely focusing on a project, which again is a piece of planned work. So now I'd like to share with you what we call the project management lifecycle. And this sequence of stages that you can see here are what we generally call the lifecycle of a project. Now, the sequence of the stages will differ depending on which methodology you're referring to. You're going to get something different that's used in software development or building a bridge in construction compared to organizing events or workshops. But this is an example of a very simple project management lifecycle. And essentially, any life cycle aims to guide you through not only how to think about your project at each stage, but will also dictate which tools you will need at each stage and how you can approach each stage. And the value of this life cycle here is that it incorporates a linear process where essentially one thing happens after another, but also incorporates the reality of projects and project management, that there is need for a far more iterative cycle as changes occur, as you learn new things, as you trial things and begin to adapt your plan or your approach in order to align with those new updates or those changes or those new learnings. And so here you can see that there is a linear process. So for example, using the workshop as an example, we would run through each of these stages, first of all, sort of in that planning stage and moving across, and then we would cycle through these stages as we learn more. We would work on the project, we would track it, we would replan, and again work on the project. So there's this iterative cycle that occurs here. And then you have the closing of the project. Now I invite you to think of your project that you can use as an example to practice with. So moving forward, we're going to be exploring some tools. So think of a project, it could be one that you've done before, and you can apply these templates retrospectively just to practice with them, or make up a project like a kitchen refurb, or organizing your grandparents' 70th birthday. Or if you have a project coming up, you can also begin to use these tools just to play around with and practice with. Once you have your project, you can move on to the next video. See you soon.